Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Jurassic World Rebirth release, and we have one from a company that I really quite enjoy and I feel like doesn't get nearly enough credit. This is from Furyu, and I have reviewed quite a few of their models in the past for Jurassic Park and Jurassic World when it comes to their Legacy Selection line, but this time again we now dive into Rebirth with two brand new releases, only one of which of course we're going to go over in this review. You can see though, this is very clearly the T-Rex, and you can't really read that unless you are familiar with the language, but it is the T-Rex. You've got a really nice shot of it down here. I don't know exactly if it's based on this color scheme or what we see in the actual film, but I guess we'll find out soon enough. You can kind of see a shot here, giving you an idea as to what the coloration is that it's based on, which to me looks more like the version that we see on screen, but I guess we'll see. And then we turn it around to the back. You've got a whole bunch of information up here on the top. Again, just a little bit more artwork and stuff. And then over here, another shot of the T-Rex. So let's pop this open and check it out. And here is our T-Rex now out of the packaging and definitely looking pretty darn awesome, actually. Unfortunately, I would say that the color scheme is almost like a mixture of the version that we actually see on screen and kind of a little bit of like the, alternate version that we've seen shown off so much that never actually did appear on screen. I don't know what happened with that. Like, I'm not sure if there was supposed to be two T-Rex in the movie or if maybe it was just like a different design and then they changed the color up a little bit later. I don't know what happened exactly, but obviously the version that goes around as far as like the advertisements and everything for Rebirth is really quite different as far as the colors go compared to the version that we actually see on screen. And this kind of looks like maybe it's more so based on the version that again is like part of all of the displays and everything, but at the same time it does have elements of the actual version we see on screen. So it's kind of a mixture of both, honestly, but it does look really nice. So we're actually going to readjust the camera and then bring the figure in. I would actually say it's one of the nicest Furyu figures that I have seen so far, even especially when it comes to the paintwork. A lot of the time I think the Furyu figures are a little lacking when it comes to the paint, but this one seems a little bit better. But if you start here in the head sculpt of the T-Rex, you can see the detail actually looks really good and definitely really crisp. And one other complaint that I've had in the past when it comes to the Furyu figures is the fact that sometimes the detail is a little bit muted, but we don't really see that here. Like you can see again some nice looking scales here up on the top of the head. You've got all sorts, there we go, all sorts of variation to the sizes of the scales. You've also got a little variation of color as you move through, which is nice and very smoothly applied. Darker tones running along the jawline and then up and over the top of the head. You've also got that striping that moves down there through the palate area. You've also as well got a nice yellow eye with a black pupil, which looks pretty good. And then as you move down here to the lower jaw, again, tons of really nice looking scale detail, very nice looking paintwork as well that has brought out all of that scale detail in a really nice realistic way. We also have the slit here in the jawline for the T-Rex, again, something that you do actually see on the Rex in Jurassic World Rebirth. And as you move through, you've of course got the mouth wide open. Really nice shot of the T-Rex there with the mouth open. As you move inside the mouth, and my camera refuses to focus, there you go, you can see the tongue in there. Again, some decent looking detail inside the mouth, and again, they've actually added a little variation of color to the inside of the mouth as well. So that does, I would say amp up the overall realism of the model, definitely making it look a lot nicer than it could have. When you look over here on the opposing side, you can see again that the head sculpt looks really good. The skin detail and everything looks really good. Definitely one of the best looking when it comes to the sculpt as far as a Rebirth T-Rex model that is out on the market currently. And the paintwork again isn't half bad either. But you've also got the teeth sculpted out really quite nicely as you move through, and they as well are painted pretty impressively because they have kind of like a yellowish sort of a tone, but they also have like a brown wash that's been applied, so there's some variation of color to the teeth as well. As you move up here to the top of the head, again, the skin texture continues to look really nice. We also pick up a striping effect. As you begin to move down the neck, you can see again the stripes leading down. You've got kind of like a light sort of a tone for the primary body color at this point. Lots of skin wrinkles for sure, because the Rex has its head turned toward us and has a pretty sharp turn occurring, so you have all types of skin wrinkles and folds here, which is exactly what you would see considering the movement of the T-Rex. We can also see a few osteoderms and stuff popping up. As you lead to the bottom of the neck, there is a very obvious seam where the neck was connected, and you also see a seam here where the arm was connected, and that is one thing that is really common, unfortunately, with the Furyu figures, is seams. There are almost always seams all over their figures. They don't ever seem to try to like disguise that part of their releases. But as you move down through the body, again, the skin texture continues to look pretty decent. Some variation to the scales and everything. You also have that darker tone, like the black, kind of overtaking the back here in almost the entire spinal column, moving down along the back, but also kind of leading down and kind of breaking up and striping down into the side of the body. Again, a little bit of a different style of scale, detail, and skin texture. As you move further down, we can make out the rib cage of the Tyrannosaurus as well. As you lead down to the arms also look quite nice. They definitely have some musculature to them. We can as well see, again, a nice dark wash that's been applied to the figure, which is a really nice addition. The fingers are sculpted fairly nicely, and we also have the claws sculpted out. They have a genuine sharp look to them. They're also painted with a black, which does feature a gloss coat, and they actually do have the wrists correctly placed and everything, because the T-Rex in the newer film does have correctly placed wrists, which is nice to see. As you move back, again, you have a seam here in the leg as you lead up into like the hip area. If you really wanted to go ahead and grab one of these, you could probably fill up all of those seams, kind of hide them, and then repaint this to look a little bit more screen accurate, and you would have yourself a masterpiece if you ask me. But as you move down, again, some scoots moving down the front of the leg. You've also got some really nice looking skin texture as well as musculature as you move further back through the thigh. Some skin wrinkles and stuff back here on the back of the leg, of course, because of the positioning of the leg. As you lead down, you can see the kneecap right there. You can also see the calf muscle. There is a seam where the leg was connected, but that one's a little bit better looking overall. It doesn't really jump out at me as much as some of the others do. As you move down, you can also see the foot sculpt looking really good, very bird-like and very Jurassic Park and Jurassic World-like for sure. Some nice scoots moving down the toes. The foot does darken to a blackish tone as you lead down, with a little bit of dry brushing here and there with some like light grays. The claws, of course, look to be painted, but considering the entire foot is pretty much black, it's hard to truly tell. No, actually, I would definitely say they're painted, because you can see over here with the dew claw, that's definitely a little bit darker than the paintwork we have for the feet. So the claws are painted, which is really nice to see. And then as you move up, of course, you're going to have another seam here for the tail. And in fact, when the model does come, the tail is unassembled. So you do have to put that tail on there, which means you are definitely going to have a seam. But again, the paintwork looks really nice. You've got, again, that light primary body tone. You also have that nice dark wash at play here, really amping up the detail, shining out the detail of the sculpt. You've got the striping now that kind of breaks up and turns into more of an actual striping as you lead out through the length of the tail. You also have a nice curve to the tail as well. I would say the tail seems a little bit short, but I feel like even in the actual film, the tail seems kind of short and maybe not super short, but just looks a little bit awkward at times when it comes to the T-Rex. So maybe the tail is accurate as far as the length goes here. I'm not too sure, but I really like the tail and the way that it kind of curves. It has a beautiful curve to it, beautiful, elegant curve to it. Of course, on the opposing side, you are going to see the T-Rex now with its head facing away from us, as it does have a pretty sharp turn occurring in the head and neck area. As you lead back, again, the skin texture is absolutely impressive on this figure. So some of the best fine detail I've seen on any Furyu release up until this point. All sorts of nice skin wrinkles and skin folds and skin detail down there in the neck and throat area. As you lead back, of course, we're going to see the seams in the neck and arm again, but you've also got a nice looking arm sculpt over here, again nice and muscular, also held into the body in the same way pretty much as the other side, but in a slightly different position. As you lead back, a few more skin wrinkles and skin folds and stuff. Again, the rib cage popping up right here, very impressive skin texture, and some more of the dark tone again moving along the back. As we lead back further, you can see the seam very obviously, again where the leg was connected over here. The musculature is absolutely on display on this side, especially because the leg is kind of bent up and folded. So it's really kind of tensing the muscles, which you can see. Again, the scoot's moving down the front of the leg, and then as we move down into the foot sculpt, you obviously see that the foot turns into a black tone, again, just like we saw on the opposing foot, but also the fact that it is in a walking position. This leg is held up pretty high off the ground, and in fact, the T-Rex is standing on just one leg, which hopefully doesn't come into play in the long run when it comes to the balancing of this one. Sometimes when dinosaurs are positioned like this on one leg, they tend to warp over time, so fingers crossed that doesn't happen with this one. Also, the seam is actually pretty well hidden as far as the knee area goes on this one. Like, you almost don't see it at all. But then you lead up again into the tail, and of course it's going to look pretty much the same, just curving in this direction now on this side. And you also have a nice little base here, and the base is just a small plastic base that just has like some vegetation basically with a few different variations of greens, and then of course, you know, the dark wash that's been applied. So some nice earthy tones, which do look really nice, and of course help with the overall display of the T-Rex. As of right now, I will say it does stand perfectly on the base. As far as a size goes, for a length, you are looking at about 11 inches or 28 centimeters, and then to the top of the tail, I'd say just shy of 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters, and then to the top of the neck, about 5 inches, almost on the dot for about 5 inches, or a little bit under 13 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A Human Being, next to our Furyu Rebirth T-Rex, and you can see again, it's not all that huge. It's actually pretty similar in size to Mr. Papo T-Rex. However, that kind of surprises me because a lot of the Furyu Tyrannosaurs have been fairly large over the years. We've only had 2, I believe, up until this point, but they're usually fairly decent in size, and considering the Rebirth T-Rex is actually pretty huge in the movie, it's surprising that this ends up being one of the smaller T-Rex in the line. And then for another comparison, and to kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about as far as the size being kind of surprising, here is the Jurassic World Rexy figure that was released by Furyu, which you very clearly can see is quite a bit larger than the Rebirth T-Rex that we have. So kind of surprising that they lowered the size as far as this one goes, when technically it should have been a little bit bigger. And to give you an idea of the size, next to one of the most popular Jurassic Park style Tyrannosaurus figures of all time, we have the Nanmu female T-Rex model here next to the Furyu Rex, and obviously the size difference is pretty drastic. And then to give you a really good feel for the size of this one, this is the newer Howlong-Good T-Rex, obviously a more accurate interpretation than what we have with the Jurassic World version, but I did want to bring this one in just to show you that size-wise they are very close in size. And you're going to see pretty much the exact same thing if you bring in the Beasts of the Mesozoic 1/35th scale T-Rex, again another figure that is roughly in the same size as this Furyu Tyrannosaurus. And then just a few of the random comparisons that I do from time to time. Here is the Safari Ltd U Tyrannus, which is obviously a lot smaller. The Schleich Diabloceratops, which again is a lot smaller. And that'll continue on when we move over to the Collect A Deluxe Dimetrodon, which is again quite a bit smaller. And even bringing in a standard Mattel Velociraptor, significantly smaller than the T-Rex, even if the T-Rex isn't all that large in its own right. Again, the Raptor is of course a bit smaller. And then just because, why not? Here is the Lab Lockdown T-Rex from Mattel, again another Jurassic World Rebirth Tyrannosaurus, next to the Furyu version, and very clearly these two are quite drastically different in size. So this brand new Furyu Jurassic World Rebirth Tyrannosaurus Rex is honestly, I would say, their best work to date. Overall, the sculpt is really well done. It is extremely highly detailed and absolutely features some of the best fine detail and best quality that I've seen from Furyu yet. The overall pose is also really cool, very menacing and very attention-grabbing. Definitely an exciting pose, I'll put it that way. So I really quite like that aspect as well, which also kind of shows off the ferocity of the Tyrannosaurus from Rebirth, because it absolutely seemed to be a pretty angry T-Rex in its own right, so it does show that off pretty nicely here. The paint apps are also really nicely done for Furyu. Surprisingly, a lot of the time they have fairly lackluster paint applications application, so it is nice to see that they have improved quite drastically with this release. I don't think I would say that the paint application is perfect as far as portraying the Rebirth Tyrannosaurus. There's obviously some difference, and again, I think it's kind of like almost like a jumbled mess between the grayish version we've seen plastered all over everything and the coloration that you actually see on the Rebirth T-Rex. So a little bit of a mixture of both, it seems, but it does look pretty nice on this, and again, is one of the best looking Jurassic World Rebirth sculpts that I've seen so far. But overall, it's definitely a fun figure, and I would absolutely say worth picking up. So if you are interested, your best bet is probably eBay or Mercari or somewhere like that. It's not something that's really easy to find here in the United States, and you usually have to resort to those websites to find one. So hopefully you can find one that's not super expensive and you can grab it. And of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.